Hello to those of you that are coming into the webinar now. I'm just going to give it a couple of minutes for everyone to get in here, and then we're going to start. See a good amount of people coming in. Just give it one more minute. All right, I think I will go ahead and get started, and hopefully a couple more people will join us as we get going here. So thanks everyone for joining us today. My name is Kaylee. I am the dispatcher here at CompuWorks, so I've spoken with many of you before. For everyone joining, I'm just going to go over some Zoom etiquette today. So if you have a question, we are going to ask you to use the Q&A button in Zoom to bring up the dialog box where you enter in your question. You can find it at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We will try to get through as many of the questions as possible during the webinar, but we'll also stay a little bit later if there's additional questions that come through at the end. We'll want to make sure that you get all the information you need before you leave today. And then after the webinar, we will ask you to fill out a feedback survey. We'll ask for your ideas on future topics and how you liked this webinar so that we can really provide you with the information that you guys want and provide you with the webinars that you're really looking for. And before I flip it over to Alan, I just want to let everyone know about the upcoming event that we have in April. It's April 26th from 1:30 to about 2:30, 3 o'clock, and it is Excel 101. So if Excel is something that you want to learn a little bit more about, please go to our website and register for that next webinar. And before our presentation begins, I'd like to introduce CompuWorks founding partner, Alan Bauman.
Everybody, welcome. Nice little crowd here today for OneNote, which is great. I think that's funny. OneNote is one of those neglected, parts of Office, which I think, a lot of people could get something out of. I know I would sort of count us in that boat until maybe a couple of years ago when we found a really great application for it in our HR group. So we do use it in-house for some things that we find super useful. So I think you guys will get a lot out of this session. I'm sure that as usual, I'll get a lot out of this session. I'm happy to have so many familiar faces in the crowd here today. So also happy to welcome back Jolynn Reen. For those of you who are regulars on this call, you'll recognize Jolynn. She's one of our fan favorites here. We always love having Jolynn. One of the things that we like about Jolynn's sessions is that she includes some workbook materials, which we do make available. We have a training library on our website with recordings of these sessions. Please feel free to share those along with the workbook materials that Jolynn provides. So those people find very useful. And we'll point you in the right direction when we send you the follow-up survey so that you've got links to do, get to that stuff as well as register for upcoming sessions. So Jolynn is a resident expert in all things Microsoft. And as I say, she's been with us many times here in the past. She is a certified trainer and Microsoft master instructor with over 30 years experience. She teaches the basics to advanced features using programs like Teams, Excel, SharePoint, Outlook, and today OneNote. So we're really happy to have you back again, Jolynn.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Alan. I don't know if I'd call myself an expert because there are certain things about Microsoft that I don't understand, but definitely these 365 apps are things that I try and utilize every single day. And I hope everyone, when we get done with this session here today, you're going to take away with some great new features, or features, maybe not even new features, but maybe different ways of actually utilizing this program that we have called OneNote. So first off, I want to talk about different ways ways to access OneNote. So how are you going to actually get to this program? Most people are probably going to be using an online version of OneNote. OneNote is available, of course, through your Office 365 apps. So that's where I'm actually going to go right now. So when I go into my Office 365 home screen, I will have access to all of my typical Microsoft apps. And I just want to show you first a couple of different options for getting there. So when you're at your home screen, you, of course, if you have your icon on the left-hand side, you can access it that way. You could go to your menu down at the bottom or go to your menu up at the top, whichever direction you want to go. You can also open OneNote notebooks by a link that someone would give to you with a shared notebook. And I'm actually going to demonstrate that with you today because I feel that this is becoming a very popular choice. You can also access, I could go on all day just about ways to access the program, but one other way to open up a OneNote notebook that is already existing is go straight to your OneDrive. By default, when you are using your online versions of your Microsoft apps, everything is saved by default to your OneDrive. So you could, of course, go directly to your OneDrive. I use OneNote from Microsoft Teams as well. So inside the teams that I create inside Teams, I will add an app for everyone in my team to access a OneNote notebook as well. So I have a lot of different places that I go to access my OneNote notebooks, but something that is universal for everyone is the fact that we can go directly online. So if you go online, you have a OneNote notebook that is saved onto any of your cloud-based locations like a SharePoint, which of course is also including your Microsoft Teams. Otherwise, of course, your OneDrive. So what I'm going to do is go straight to the app from my menu and click on OneNote. What this does is brings up a main menu of your existing OneNote notebooks, or we could actually start a brand new notebook from this window. But before I even go into a notebook, before we even get started, I want to talk about what exactly is this program and why are you going to want to use it? So first off, I want you to change your habits. I know we all have habits, whether they're good habits or bad habits, we all have habits. So let's say that your habit is when your phone rings, and let's say that you have a desk phone, like what we used to have in an office setting. I used to have my phone convenient for my left hand to pick it up because back in the day, I knew that I was going to be holding my receiver with my left hand because I'm right-handed. And I was going to grab a scratch piece of paper or a sticky note. So if you're the person that if you're going to write down something, whether it's, you're talking on the phone or somebody walks into your office and you have to jot something down, our habit is to grab a scratch piece of paper. I have broke that habit. I no longer do that. What I ended up doing, I do a lot of chaos, clutter, and control type classes as well. And I do a lot of project management. So I like to be organized. And with that organization, what I ended up doing was I took every scratch piece of paper and every sticky note that I had on my desk or in my drawers. And I said, do I need this? If I need this, where do I want to go to find this information again? And a lot of the things that I had were on paper, physical paper notebooks. I I was actually telling Ellen a little story about this, but I had section notebooks. Back in college days, you'd have that 3 or 5 section notebook that you would use. But the thing that I found with that is I would run out of space and I had already started something on the next page. So I would rip that page out, go to where I was going to start my notes again, and I would tape it. I would tape it to that page and I would use arrows to draw from this conversation on my piece of paper to this conversation. I would draw an arrow and circle things and highlight things and all of that. I really have gotten away from doing that because one time I lost a very important sticky note that I had on my desk. And so that's why I started just kind of realizing I can't share the information on my piece of paper. Back in the day, we could not take a picture of it with our phone and then send it to somebody. Wouldn't that be crazy to even think about doing that right now? Have something written on a piece of paper, take a picture of it with your phone, and then email it or send it via text message or whatever to somebody. I just can't imagine doing those kind of things. We need a better way to not only be organized, but to be able to share information with people. And that's what OneNote gives us. OneNote is an electronic notebook. It will keep you more organized than you ever probably thought you could be. And the best part is, it's a Microsoft app, so it's easy to use. The consistency from one app to the next is, of course, amazing. So it's very easy. So what I want you to be thinking about as we go through this session, I want you to be thinking about how you currently do things, and think about how you could be doing things in OneNote instead, so that you'll be able to go back and do the same thing I did. Change your habits. Instead of grabbing a scratch piece of paper to write something down, should it be going in a notebook, especially a notebook that other people will have access to use? So what I'm going to start out with is just creating a brand new notebook, just so that you can see how you could get started with this. I'm going to go to the top and just click new notebook. It's that easy. Then you have to have a name for it. And by the way, I'm a planner. You probably already kind of caught that with what I do, but I plan my notebooks usually before I make them. Not that I can't make changes to it, of course, along the way, I definitely do. But I kind of am a planner, so I think about, what do I need to name this? Who am I going to share this with? What type of information am I going to put in my notebook? So if I had been going to a meeting, and I'm going to use the example of a marketing department. Let's say that I'm in the marketing department, and we want to have a place where we're going to be able to share notes with everybody in the marketing department. I'm going to create a notebook for the entire department to use. So first thing I'm going to do is give it a name, and I'm going to conveniently name it marketing department. So I'm going to name this marketing department. And if you want to follow along and create one on your screen, you most certainly can. And I just pressed enter, and it's automatically going to create that notebook, and it's going to open it as well. Okay. So once my notebook opens, which I need to apologize, I was telling Alan I did an update this morning, and things are running just a little sluggish on my computer until I reboot again. But just so that everybody knows also, I can actually open up OneNote on my phone and have access to my files as well. So just so you know, OneNote is available as an app on your phone too. So I'm not going to miss what I'm putting in my notebooks. I can open them on my phone, so I don't have to carry my laptop or my desktop computer or whatever with me when I go. So first thing that I want to kind of mention is I'm using the online version. It's very similar to what you would be using on your cell phone as well. But on the left-hand side, you're going to see where I have this navigation pane. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but where it says marketing department, that's actually the name of my current notebook. But if I click on that drop down, I could go back and open another notebook that I have access to. So I can see a list of different notebooks. Whether the notebooks are coming from SharePoint, they're coming from my OneDrive, etc., I will get a list of those from that drop down. So I don't have to keep navigating back to the main menu. So what a notebook is created from, or what it consists, is sections and pages. So if you think about the past, how we used to use paper notebooks, a lot of times people would have those spiral notebooks, and they would have a different spiral notebook, because you could get them for 10 cents or whatever during school season. You can have a separate notebook that people would take with them to meetings that was based on a certain topic or whatever the case might be. Or you might have a multi-section notebook that you would have one section for one thing, another section for another, and you would put all your notes in there. So kind of think about it that way, where we can have multiple sections. So one notebook is going to consist of sections. And we'll talk about the tabs for the sections and navigating those. But inside a section, you can have multiple pages. So it's not like a 100-page notebook where you're going to end up running out. and you don't have to worry about the backside. You know, you have one page and then you flip it over and you're writing on the backside as well. We don't do that. It doesn't need to be used that way. You can have as many pages as you want, and it's one continuous page going down. So it's like the old feeder paper that we used to use in dot matrix printers. It's like that instead of the laser printer desktop, one page per piece of paper. It's not like that anymore. Things are much easier to be using. So let's create a couple of sections and then we'll get into the pages for the sections. Very easy to create a section. Just go down to the bottom in this. And by the way, there's 3 sections basically to the screen. We have the left-hand side, your navigation pane. We have this middle section, and then we have the right-hand section, which the right-hand section is based on whatever you're clicked on from your middle section. Just so you kind of understand, we work from left to right, which is typical. But if you look at the bottom left of your screen, you're going to see where it says add section, add page. So it's that easy. We just click add section to create a new section, and then we just give it a name. So this is the marketing department notebook that I'm creating today as our example. So I might want to have a section that is going to be related to company templates. So I'm going to name this company templates, where we're going to be able to put hyperlinks. We're going to be able to put ideas, those kind of things. I'm going to press enter to create that new section. Now I'm going to create one more section for right now, and I'm going to click add section again at the bottom left. And then I'm going to call this one social media. So we might have a group of people that keep tabs on our social media. So you can see as I'm building this in this middle section, you're going to see that I have the name of my notebook at the top. And if you look at the icon, you can tell that it's a notebook by the icon. In some places it looks very green, just so you're familiar with the icon. And then underneath I have my different colored tabs for my different sections. So let's get into an actual section and see what we might put in that section. Right now I'm actively on the social media section. How do I know that? Because I'm clicked on it and it's got the grayish color to that tab. And then to the right of this pane to the window is an untitled page. So by default, when you create a new section, you're going to have an untitled page. And what's great about that untitled page is your cursor is actually blinking on the right-hand side in the title box of your page. So I'm actually going to call this one, Instagram. So I'm going to name this one, if I could type, I'm going to name this Instagram, and then I'm going to click off that title area. You can see under the title of this page, it has a date and time stamp. So it knows exactly when I've created it. And now I can see where it says Instagram on the right-hand side of my social media. So all my pages for this social media section are going to go down this section, this middle. Ellen?
Lynn?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. We've had
No
a couple of requests to make your screen a little bit easier to view. It's coming across as pretty small. Is there a way to
Okay.
magnify that a little
Well,
bit?
let me go up to my magnification here and zoom in. So hopefully this will help. There we go.
Great, thank you.
That's better. Thank you. I'm glad they brought that up early. So let's take a look at what you might actually do on a page. So this is my Instagram page. I could even have a page under a page, but let's say that I want to put in some new ideas that we have for Instagram. So I'm just clicking on my piece of paper for this page called Instagram. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type a heading called ideas. Now, I'm not going to do any formatting at this moment, but what this just created is called a container. This is called a container. So all text goes inside a container. Now, I want you to visualize a piece of paper. If you had a piece of paper that you were taking notes on, you could go to any section, any part of that piece of paper and write on it. You could go to the right-hand side, down to the bottom. We can do that same thing here in OneNote, because if I want to put something at the top right, all I have to do is click my mouse there. and I'm instantly in that area of that piece of paper. So maybe over on this right-hand side for my Instagram, I'm going to put in current posts. So I'm just typing and it automatically is putting it in a container. Now, I want you to be, of course, visualizing this piece of paper that you might have been writing on. What if I wanted to move that current post container to go underneath my ideas? On a piece of paper, that's going to be a lot more difficult. But here, it's easy. All I have to do is put my cursor in that container that has that current post. I'm going to get my 4 arrows, which of course is my move handle. All I have to do is click and drag and I can move my container anywhere on my piece of paper that I want it to go. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about a few other things that you may want to add to your page. What are some things that you might want to add besides just physically typing? Now, I'm going to come back and talk a little bit more about the typing here in a moment, but I want you to look at the ribbon that we have up at the top. So it's a little bit different on a phone, but if you're using either the desktop or the online version, you'll have a ribbon up the top and you have, of course, tabs just like you would in any of your other Microsoft apps. So the home tab is going to give you formatting options. So when I look at all my formatting tools, they're very similar to what you would find anywhere. So I'll get back to this tab here in a few minutes, because right now I want to go to the Insert tab. The Insert tab is where you will go to insert content to put into your pages that belong to your sections. You can simply just copy and paste something. Go to Outlook, select text, paste it in here, copy it from Outlook and paste it. You could go to an Excel spreadsheet, do some copying and pasting. I'll get to the copy paste in a moment. But a very common thing that I see people using here in OneNote is, what if you wanted to organize this current post that you're going to do? Let's say that we're going to think about what kind of a post should we do during January, February, March, April, May, et cetera, et cetera. Let's get some ideas going on some different posts that we might do for Instagram. We might want to organize that in a table. So if you've ever used tables in any of your other Microsoft apps, you can actually be inserting tables here into a OneNote notebook so that you can have the columns and rows of information to organize your data. So I'm going to go to from the Insert tab on the left-hand side, I'm going to click Table. I can choose how many columns and how many rows I want to start with. I'm going to say I want to start with 3 columns and 3 rows. I click, just like I normally would create a table, I can click on that number of squares, 3 by 3, and it automatically puts it in a new container for me. So I can have this container where I can physically be typing in whatever I want to keep track of. So I'm going to say that this is actually going to be, I'm going to be putting the months, and then I'm going to have a column for ideas. And then I'm going to come down underneath the months and I would be putting it, of course, January, and then I would do my February. And then just like a normal table, if I keep tabbing, as I go through my table, it automatically is adding new rows. So I could continue to go to March, April, et cetera, et cetera. I won't go any further on that, but I think you get the idea. Now, when I am using a table, just like with your other Microsoft apps, you will see that you have a table tab on the ribbon. So some objects, when you insert them, they'll give you additional tools on the ribbon that you can be using. So I could go in and I could select cells. I could do that just by clicking and dragging too. I could delete a table, a column, or a row. I could insert columns, rows, or other tables. I could even do different formatting. So I could be selecting different cells and do some different shading and things like that. So of course, depending on how you want things to look, you have the ability of being able to select and change the formatting. So however you need things to look. All right. So A table is a way to help you organize information. And of course, it is inside a container because everything technically goes in a container here on your pages of your notebook. You can, of course, click and drag this table wherever you need it to go, because sometimes you're going to need extra space. So if you started something at the top left and you need to move things around to rearrange them, just move them. Click and drag the container that the content belongs in. It's that easy. Okay, so I'm going to come back to this ideas, and I'm going to talk about some of the things that our company may want to be having for ideas, just to brainstorm, and then we can figure out what month they might go into. So this will just be a general list. So I'm going to press enter after ideas, and I'm just going to type a couple of things in. Maybe we want to do some shortcuts, and then maybe we want to talk about the new products coming out. Maybe we have a new marketing plan that we want to introduce, you know, and we could sit and type all these elements in, make this list. Well, a lot of times when we have a list, there's more that kind of goes with it. So let's talk about what else might go with that. Let's say that we have a question about the new marketing plan. If I am clicked within this line, anywhere within the line where I typed new marketing plan, I can put a tag on that line. The tags are located from the home tab of the ribbon. If you click on tags, these are your built-in tags that are a part of OneNote. We can even search tags, by the way. But what these tags allow you to do is to mark something as being important. You want it as something that you have to do, where you can check it off when you do it. You could have it marked as a contact. It could be critical, whatever you would like to mark it as. You can mark any object. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the question mark so that people know that I have a question. So when somebody else opens this, they can see that I have a question about this new marketing plan. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit more with this. I'm going to format ideas, because ideas is actually my heading. Now, if you're familiar with formatting in any of your Microsoft programs, you have your basic font size, which of course we get Calibri size 11 by default in all Microsoft programs. I could do bold, italic, underline, all of these choices. I could even clear my formatting. So if I had applied formatting and I don't want it, I could clear it out, just like your other Microsoft apps. But what I'm going to do to save some time and effort is I use styles all the time. I never use individual formatting because I don't like clicking that much. So what I do is I go to styles. If you're familiar with styles in your other Microsoft apps like Word, PowerPoint, Excel, you can use built-in formatting called a style. So it's a heading. So I'm going to choose a heading format. So I just chose heading 1. It's Calibri size 16. And it's actually a different color. So I don't have to individually apply that formatting. I use a style instead. Plus, it's going to keep me consistent. Okay. Then I'm also going to go to my table, and I'm going to do the same thing, because up at the top row of my table, those are headings. So I'm going to use a style to format those as well. I'm going to click on the drop down for styles, and I'm going to use heading 2. I don't need it to be quite so big. I'm going to use heading 2, which uses a size 14. It's also a blue font. It's a blue font. So we can use different types of formatting to make sure that things are standing out or easier to read, just like we can anywhere else. And let me jump back over to this ideas list. I've decided that I would like to have this be a task list. That if you're familiar with how people do that on paper, you write something down, and when you're done, you either cross it off or you check it, saying that you've done it. We could do that same thing here in OneNote. I love this part of using this program. I'm going to select shortcuts, new products, and the new marketing plan. So everything that I have in my list, I'm selecting all of it. Then I'm going to go back to my tags again. I'm going to go back to my tags. And from my tags, I'm going to tag it with a to-do. I'm going to tag it with a to-do. What that does is gives me a checkbox next to each of the items that when I complete something, I can go back and check it as being done. I would go back and just check the box, basically. So I'll come back and check things off as I kind of start making my pages and I start doing more and more things. But let's say that I need a new page. I want to have a new page for my social media. I'm going to have one for Facebook. I'm going to go down to the bottom left. I'm going to click on the icon here for add page. It's going to add it to my current section. And just like we saw before on the right-hand side, it gives you a title up at the top and it's date and time stamped, just like we previously saw. So I'm going to name this Facebook. And then of course, if I want to add any content to this Facebook page, all I have to do is click where I want to do the typing and I'll get my containers. But let's talk about a few other things that you might want to insert. Actually, I'm going to do a copy paste. Let me go ahead and open up an Excel workbook. So let's say somebody sent you a workbook or you created a workbook and you want to take some of the information from that workbook and you want to put it into your OneNote notebook. I'm going to I'll just go to references. And I want to take this information that I'm selecting. I'm going to do a copy, a typical Control C or right click and left click on copy. However you do your copy. I'm going to go back to my OneNote notebook. I'm actually going to be, oops, wrong notebook. I'm going to my online OneNote notebook. So when I'm actually in this notebook, the online version, I'm going to just do a right click and I'm going to paste this. Now notice that when I go to do this, because I did a copy, I have two different ways to paste this. I can do a regular paste or I could just bring in the text only. The regular paste is going to give the formatting along with it. So I'm just going to click paste. And it brought along my formatting to come with the data. Otherwise, it would just give me the text that was in those cells that I copied. So I have this data now that I can actually be using right here within my OneNote notebook. But I clicked on a couple of cells here just to kind of show you what's going on with this. I copied and pasted from Excel. And anytime that you do that, and you bring along your formatting, you don't just do the text, it comes in as a table. So how do I know that this is a table? Because if I look at my ribbon, I have a table tab. So if I click on my table tab, I will have my table tools. So just like you do in any of your other Microsoft apps, you copy and paste from Excel, it's going to come in as a table. Wonderful feature. Absolutely love that. So if somebody sends you information that you now want to have in this notebook, you'll have access to it. But let's talk about bringing in other content. So right now, what we have talked about, how do you put stuff on your pages? You click and you type. That's one way. You can copy and paste or cut and paste. You also can go to the Insert tab. And one of the items that we talked about already from the Insert tab was to insert a table. I'm going to insert a file this time. I'm going to go ahead and click on File. I can insert a file attachment or I can insert a file printout. I'm going to show you the difference between these because it's important to understand. First, I'm going to insert a file attachment. So when I go into my file attachment, it takes me to my computer where I can physically navigate to locate the information that I want to attach. So I'm going to say that I want to attach this PowerPoint for this. Well, actually, I think I'll do a Word document. I'm going to attach this Word document where it says ERP integration project scope. I'm going to click open. So what it's going to do is give me an attachment for that specific file. So it put it inside a container. I can move the container wherever I want it to go. It's got the name of the file. And then it's also, of course, got the icon representing the file. So you know what file type it is. That's one way to insert a file. Of course, I can double click to open it as well. But let me show you another option that you have. I'm going to go back to File again. and I'm going to click on Insert File Printout. Insert File Printout. It takes me back into my documents again, just like it did for the attachment. I'm actually going to choose an Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to go into some Excel files, and I'm going to say that I want to insert an Excel file. Let me just go into, okay. Oops, I better change my custom files to all files. That will help me find my files. Okay, so I'm just going to attach bring in any one of these Excel files. Okay, and this is going to tell me that my OneNote notebook, please select a Word document or a PDF file for attaching. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So what that just told me was that I was unable to attach the Excel file using that feature. So I'm going to go back and do it as a Word document. I've had that give that to me once before, and it's inserting a PDF or a Word document. So let me grab, well, I could do a Word document, but I have a PDF right here. I'll just do a PDF just to show you. So basically what this did was gave me a brand new container again. And this container is going to contain a printout, hence the PDF, a printout of the actual file itself. So as I'm scrolling up and down on this, notice how my page went way down. So I have this scroll bar over on the right-hand side, and my page is continuously going down as I keep adding items to it. So here's my PDF. I can click and drag and move this container, of course, anywhere that I want it to go, but the container itself is the contents of that PDF file. So I can click and drag, or I can scroll down, I should say, to see every page in that PDF file. Or I could have just done it as an attachment and opened it. But I do have the PDF attachment at the top of this printout as well. At the top of this printout as well. If I have a file like a Word document, an Excel spreadsheet, a PowerPoint that I wanted to add in, and I do it as the attachment, I could go back to the icon, double click on it, and I could go ahead and open up that file. It's having me download a copy of it because it is a copy of that attached file. So I could double click and open that file up, just so you're aware that you could do that. So we have different types of items that can be added inside your notebook. Think of if you have things that you need to be kind of sharing, or a central location that you want to have access to everything as you're kind of working with your team or working with a group of people on things. It just makes it so much quicker and so much easier. I went to my downloads to open up this file just so that you can see it does open up my Word document. But I'm not going to worry so much about that Word document right now. Let me go back and show just a couple of other things that you can actually insert into your pages again, because it's important when you start thinking about, what am I going to do in my notebook? What kind of information do we want to put in our notebook? What kind of information do we need to share with other people? So I'm going to go back to my Insert tab of the ribbon again, and I'm going to click on Picture. If I have a specific picture of any sort, like a picture of my new product, a picture of what we had before on Facebook, or a picture of somebody else's ideas, whatever the case might be, I could add in a picture from my computer from File, or I could grab it from my camera, or I could be putting in a picture that came from the internet. I'm going to go ahead and click on From Online, because I don't have a ton of pictures on my computer that you're seeing today. So I'm just going to do From Online. And I can, of course, search for whatever type of an image that I want. So maybe I have an idea of something that we can use for our Facebook post. I want to have a specific image that we're going to use for our Facebook post. And I'm going to say that it's going to be related to one of our products. And let's say that our products are furniture. We're a furniture company. So I'm going to choose a piece of furniture, and I'm going to say this would be a great picture to use, or whatever the case might be. So I want to store that in my OneNote notebook on a specific page directly related to my Facebook. So once a picture comes up, I'm going to just click on one, and I'm going to do Insert, just like you normally would with any of your other documents, or I should say programs. So it is a container. The picture is inside a container, so I can click and drag and move it around. That's the best part about this program, is that we can reorganize things on a specific page to go anywhere you want them to go. When you are selected on an image, you will see that you have a picture tab on the ribbon. From the picture tab, you are limited on what it is that you can actually do, but you will have a couple of choices like cropping and changing the height and things like that. But I can actually resize it myself by clicking and dragging the sizing handles. I can always resize it inside that container as well. And as I resize the image, it resizes the size of the container, because containers, I don't know if anybody uses Visio. Visio uses containers to put your flow charts and things in. So this is just like that. These are the containers that are similar to Visio, where our containers contain objects, whether it's text or it's images or tables or whatever the object happens to be. But I like the fact that we get a tab on the ribbon related to the type of information you're within. So if I'm in a table or I'm in an image, it gives me corresponding tools to use. Now, I'm going to jump back to the Insert tab one more time. And just so you can see a few other things that you could insert. I could insert a link. What's the difference between a link and an attachment? A link will take you directly to the file. So let me go ahead and click on Insert Link. I can put in what the display text is for the link that I want, and then I can put in what the address of the link is. So I could go to my File Explorer and I could copy the link to a specific file, whatever that file might be. So I could copy the path of that file. So I'm going to do a copy path to this specific Excel file. I'm going to put that in the address. I'm going to paste that here in the address, and then I'm going to also put in the text that I want it to display, and I'm just going to say Excel file, just so you can see that you can do that, and then I'm going to click Insert. So I can have an attachment to a file that is inside a container, just so you can see you can do that. So just like anything else, you can click on the link and it would automatically take you to that specific file. That's a lot nicer for updating things, especially if you have an Excel file that is related to your Facebook page that you're on, and you want to have access to, maybe you have some funding that you have on an Excel spreadsheet. Everybody would have quick, easy access to that file by that hyperlink. They're going directly to the file as opposed to a copy of the file with an attachment. So links, I think, are more usable. They're more user-friendly than an attachment. An attachment is not something that you're going to update regularly. Okay. Let me go back to that Insert tab and just mention a couple of other things from Insert. You could actually record audio or insert audio. So if you want to have audio added, you can also do symbols or math equations, and you get your nice little emojis that you can do as well. Okay, wherever your cursor happens to be, you can always insert an emoji, just because you can. You also have access to stickers. Stickers are used in other Microsoft apps as well, so you could add in a sticker image if you wanted to as well. Okay, lots of great little stickers that you can be bringing in. Don't know that I would personally use those, but just so you know, you can. I'm going to move that container a little bit here so you can see that a little bit better, but those are some of the things that you can bring in. You also can bring in meeting details. Let me go ahead and click on this meeting details. If I have a meeting that I had conducted, unfortunately, I'm having difficulty logging into my Microsoft account. Totally forgot about that. But if I were logged into my Microsoft account, I could navigate to an appointment that I had and put in the details from my contents of that actual meeting. So let's say that I went to Outlook and I scheduled a meeting with a group of people and I had an agenda and I can insert the meeting details, it's going to bring in when is the meeting going to be held, where is it going to be held, and it will bring in any of the details that you put in the body of that appointment, just so you know what it does. Okay, so I have definitely used that in the past as well. Great feature. And then on the insert tab, that's about all that, I think the inserting a link is probably a very popular. Inserting a table is very popular as well. But let's go back and talk a little bit more about when you have a paper notebook. And let's say that you're at a meeting and you brought along your tablet, or you have your phone, or you have your laptop, whatever device that you have with you at your meeting. I used to take my paper notebook with me to all my meetings. And then what I would do is I would be writing all my notes. And even back in the day, I'll take you even further in history. We used to print out a copy of the agenda and put it on the conference table so that when everybody came into the meeting, they'd grab a copy of it. And that's where they would write their notes on, or they'd do it in their notebook. And then we'd get back to our desk and we'd have to retype all that in. Every note that we had and our action items and all of that got retyped in to the computer somewhere. Save yourself some time. Do that in OneNote instead, because it's instantly going to be shared with others if you're sharing your notebook. And I'm going to talk about sharing here before we're done with our session. But let me talk about a great feature here in OneNote. It's called Draw. So up on the ribbon, we have this Draw tab. If you go to the Draw tab, you can use a stylus. If you have a pen for your Microsoft Surface or your tablet, whatever it is that you're using, you have a touchscreen device of some sort, or you can, of course, be using your mouse. I am not very good at this. I don't have a stylus on the laptop that you're seeing today, but I could use a mouse. So let's say that I decide that I want to do that. I'm going to choose a pen, and I'm going to choose a pen color. And I could choose a highlighter. So I have all these different tools up on the ribbon when I go to the Draw. Then my mouse becomes a pen, and I could sit and draw things. So the one that I do the best is my name. So just so you could see, I could be doing writing. If I had an actual stylus, I could be doing writing right in my OneNote notebook. So something to consider doing. And this little icon here for your thickness. If you want to change the thickness of your pen, you can be doing that as well. Lots of really kind of cool choices that we have, depending on, of course, what it is you want to do. But if you want to toggle back to typing again, you're going to go to the icon on the left where it shows your mouse pointer and it shows your I-beam with an A. When you click on that, you're back to typing again. So you can toggle back and forth in between physically writing, or you can be doing your, go back and do your typing from your keyboards again. All depends on what it is that you need. Let's talk about the View tab. The View tab is going to give you different view choices, which I really like. So first off, you could go into a reading view. I'm not going to get real detailed with that, but you can also zoom. So if I want to zoom down to 50% on my piece of paper, because I have a lot of information on my paper and I want to be able to see more of it, you can be doing some zooming. So depending on what zoom level you want. Okay. I go back to 100% most of the time. So I'm just going to zoom back to 100% by clicking on that. And then a lot of people like to have different colors for their pages. You could go to this page color and choose a different background color for your actual page. So if you like to have different page colors, you could be using those as well. I personally don't do that, but just so you know, you could. You also can show authors. This feature is great if you have a shared notebook. So in a minute, when I demonstrate a shared notebook, I will turn on this show authors so that you can see what exactly does that give us. So I'm going to go ahead and do a share for you. So first off, if I want other people to have access to this notebook, right now this notebook is on my OneDrive. If you look at the top right, I can see my cloud where it's syncing to my OneDrive. It basically syncs to your OneDrive to a folder called Notebooks. So by default, that's where it's going to go. But if I were in a SharePoint site and I add in I have a OneNote notebook by default to my SharePoint site, or I add new notebooks, I could open those as well. And those could be shared with whoever has access to those SharePoint sites. So I wouldn't have to share it. Or I could have created a OneNote notebook in my Microsoft Teams. Anyone that has access to that team, anybody that's a member, an owner, or a guest to that team would have access to that OneNote notebook through Teams as well. But this is on my OneDrive. And I want a couple of other people to be able to access this. I'm going to go to share at the top right, and I'm going to click on share from the drop down. Once I do that, it's going to allow me to choose who I want to share this with. So if you've ever used sharing capabilities for any of your Microsoft apps before, you can type in their name coming from your global address list, etc., and it would automatically show that person's name, and you can click on their email address or click on their name, and it will automatically add them to the list of who you're sharing this with. So I'm going to just add my other computer, which is my Jolene computer. On the right-hand side, I have this pencil. If I hesitate on it, by default, anybody that I share this with can edit the notebook, meaning they can make changes to it by default. But otherwise, I can turn off can view only. So they can't make changes to it. They can just see the notebook, which sometimes is extremely helpful. But I'm going to keep it on can edit. And then what I'm going to do is I clicked on the link down at the bottom. When I clicked on this link down at the bottom, I can choose anyone with this link. So these are my link settings. Anyone with this link is going to be able to open this notebook. Down at the bottom, I'm allowing editing. I could set an expiration date. I could put a password on it as well. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to click cancel. I just wanted you to be aware of down here at the bottom when I clicked on anyone with this link can edit. What I'm going to do is just click send. It sends an email to the person that I wanted to share this with. Now I could type a message in here just so you know, but I'm just going to click send. They're going to receive an email with a hyperlink to get into this notebook. Before we started our session today, I sent one from my other computer to this computer, just so you can see how it looks on the other side. So here I found that I have a link that was shared with me from Jolene, and it's showing me that it's a Microsoft 365 tips and tricks OneNote notebook. If I want to open this notebook, all I have to do from this email is click open. Once I've opened a notebook, one that is shared with me or whatever, I can open it from my recent list. Okay. But it automatically has now opened this notebook that was shared. So I can see that this particular notebook on the left-hand side, it has 3 different sections, one for Excel, one for Access, and one for Microsoft Word. And then under the Excel, it has keyboard shortcuts. And I'm going to add to that. I'm going to go to a container. I'm going to add a container for this. And by the way, my other computer is actively in this notebook at the same time. So my other computer and this computer that you're seeing are both in this notebook at the same time. And I'm going to just type in a couple of keyboard shortcuts. So maybe I would put in Control Home, navigate to, takes you to cell A1. So I could come in here and I can do any kind of typing that I want to. Or my other computer can come in and do some typing as well. So I'm going to have Jolene do some typing. Okay, now I'm going to say that I've decided that I don't need this notebook open anymore. I'm all done with it. I have my tab up on my browser. I'm going to go ahead and just click on the X to close it. So anytime that you're using a notebook, you're done with it, just go ahead and close the window. Any changes that you made or anybody else have made, of course, are going to be saved. If I want to reopen that notebook, I can go back into my Microsoft Office home screen, and my recent files are going to be listed. I don't have to go to the app, of course, to open it. I can go directly to my recent list and I could reopen up that notebook. Or of course, I could go back to OneNote app and reopen it from there. but I'm going to go ahead and just open it here from my recent list. This is my list of my files for my OneDrive, and it's going to reopen up that notebook. So I can have different people be sharing the same notebook, and anybody can come in here and they can be making changes to the notebook. Okay, so I could go to access, I could go to the Word section, and I could be adding in more things. Oh, here's actually a container that Jolynn actually typed in. So we can have all these sections with all these pages, and we can be sharing this information back and forth with other people. But how do you know who did what? If I go back to the View tab, from the View tab of the ribbon, if I click on Show Authors, it's going to show any of the containers of who did what. So here on this Word section, on this keyboard shortcuts page, I am seeing my name, Jolynn, as the person that actually created this container. If I go back to Excel, I can see that it was student 1, the computer you're seeing, that made the changes to this Control Home keyboard shortcut. I really like being able to see that because everybody always says, well, who added that in? Whose idea was that? So it's kind of a way to, it stamps, it has that as background property details that we always know who added what into the actual OneNote page. So OneNote notebooks can be used online, desktop, which, by the way, if my login to my Microsoft was working correctly, I could open this in my desktop app. I do have the desktop version open down at the bottom, and let me just briefly show this to you. This is my OneNote for Windows 10. I only have that version because I'm not signed in, because my sign in for some reason today is giving me a few problems, but that's okay because everything that we need to get started with our notebooks is really in this online version, or it's even on my mobile phone. So if I wanted to open my notebook on my mobile phone, which, by the way, I do that all the time. I even have a personal notebook with my recipes in it, so that if I'm, and it has my grocery list, if I get to the grocery store, I can open up my recipes notebook because maybe I saw that I wanted to be picking up London broil or something, and I want to know what goes with it or what I need. I can actually open up my OneNote notebook right on my phone and have access to it. So I use it on a personal level as well as for business. But I can't tell you how often I have really kind of watched people just grab a sticky piece of a sticky note or a scratch piece of paper and write things down. And then a half an hour later, I see them going to their computer and writing it in their computer, typing it in. We want to have one place to be able to share and organize all of our information. And OneNote has definitely been that tool for me. That was the last topic that I wanted to cover in our session today. Alan, do we have any questions coming from the group today?
So I am not seeing any questions yet. I do have a question. So if the group wants to think about that, I think you was kind of drinking through the fire hose. So maybe people did have a chance to think of a question. But so one of the things that comes to mind for me, Jolynn, is that OneNote is a great place to kind of bring together different bits of data that's created in other applications. So you showed us how you can create something in Excel or in Word or PDF, pull it into OneNote in one place, which is very similar to the application that we have it in our human resources area, where we have training plans, and we might be talking about compensation in the spreadsheet or some other things that are all kind of coming from different sources and getting pulled into a OneNote notebook. So there's really two situations. One is where you want to bring over a static copy of what that spreadsheet looked like today. And the other is you want it to change when the spreadsheet changes. Can you talk a little bit about those two different use cases?
Well, one of the things that you could do is have a read-only copy of the spreadsheet, and it could be a link to that read-only. So if you want it to be two links, one could be a link to the live document that you're updating. One could be a link that takes you to that read-only workbook that you have saved that was date and time stamped, that you know when that was last saved as. Your other choice, which this is the one I typically do, is I will have a link, because everybody kind of understands that link concept, because a link takes you directly to a live document, a live place where you know that that's a place that you can go to update things. Then I have an attachment, that the attachment is only as good as it was when I attached it. So I could have the attachment with the date of when I attached it. Because what if I needed to have an attachment for January 31st, for February 28th, for March 31st, et cetera, et cetera. I could then do that as an attachment, and that could be a saved copy of that file that had that date on it. So it could say the name of the Excel workbook, January 2021, January 2022, or whatever the case would be. So you do get a couple of different options for that, Alan.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I'm not really seeing any questions. Anybody have anything before we wrap up this session?
Okay.
Very helpful, Jolynn, very useful. I definitely took some notes during this session. So I think that'll wrap it up. We've got a couple, we just want to, I think, post the upcoming training sessions so people have sort of a look at that and what's coming up. I think we have the next 2 or 3 months planned out. And of course, by the way, you can certainly always reach out to us if you have any questions about this or anything else. Training@compuworks.biz will get us, and 499-0607 is our phone number, as most of you are probably familiar with. So just some future topics. And Jolynn, I think you're our instructor for all of these. So I think we're going to be spending a little bit of time together, over the next few months. But in April, we've got Excel 101, which I think is fantastic. I mean, Excel's not new. I think a lot of us are familiar with it. But always good to sort of get in there if you're a new user. Kind of a good way to get an orientation to it. OneDrive for Business, another great topic. Another one of those things that I think people have heard of but don't really quite understand or know how to make the most or the best use of. And then a follow-up to the Excel 101 is Excel Beyond the Basics. So some good topics coming up here in the near future, and we're going to be seeing a lot more of you, Jolynn. So we're looking forward to that. And thank you as always for a great job. And I guess we'll see you guys all here hopefully next session.
Sounds good. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. See you, Alan.
Bye.